This figure is indispensable to British history and to Emma's story, but he didn't last long on her chessboard.
It's been said that murder pulls back the curtain on hidden lives. And what's more intriguing than what's behind a curtain? Just ask Dorothy, Scarecrow, and Tin Man. Notice I leave out the Cowardly Lion, 'cause, as we say in Texas, he just wanted him some out of there. One of the most interesting pieces on Emma's chessboard was a key figure in the line of succession of British monarchs, but one who didn't last long on her chessboard. A figure not mysterious in life, but mysterious in death. For 1,000 years, 2 questions regarding his fate remain unanswered. Did he die, or was he murdered? Edmond Ironside, king at 20, dead at 22. Valiant Saxon warrior, true heroic figure of Anglo-Saxon England, and a true nova, a star that burns bright a short time, then fades away. But Edmond Ironside didn't fade away, and may he never. For you see, Saxons didn't have the word surrender. The word was a French import from the Normans. As King Ethelred's eldest son and heir, Prince Edmund was Saxon all the way, as were his descendants. In his short life, Edmund had 2 sons. His second son, Edward the Exile, had a daughter, Margaret, who became queen consort to King Malcolm III of Scotland, making Edmund Ironside a direct ancestor to every Scottish monarch and every English monarch down to the present day. Not bad for a young life cut short. Shakespeare's Macbeth laments the briefness of life, a short life, a brief candle. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Many scholars believe that an anonymous play with Edmund Ironside as the hero is the first drama ever written by a young William Shakespeare. In this play, hundreds of rare words and usages appear in many of Shakespeare's later plays. Strong evidence suggests it was indeed the bard from Stratford-upon-Avon himself who early on penned the play, War Hath Made All Friends. The play is about 2 men. Both want to be king of England. The hero of the play is Ironside, native to the land, depicted as noble. Canutus, a Danish prince, is depicted as treacherous. A third character, Edricus, also wants the crown. So he plays both sides against the middle and shamelessly boasts of his villainy. Was this play based on the battles between the actual King Edmund Ironside and the Viking King Canute with the real Edric Strahona? A man who hungered to be close to power no matter on what side he found it. Edric was a man on the make. The comparisons are too close to miss. While the playwright's battle was fiction, the real battle was all too true. For 1,000 years hence, Edric Strahona remains the traitor of all traitors, England's Benedict Arnold. In a future episode, we'll jump smack dab in the middle of the actual battle and learn the origin of the word turncoat. The real Edmund Ironside was a fleeting figure passing through time, a king who lived and died 500 years before Shakespeare, yet a king who still holds a place in the hearts of the English. An ephemeral king who obviously put a stamp upon the mind and heart of a budding young playwright. Churchill writes of Edmund Ironside, "Already at 20 he was famous, declared a rebel by his weak father. He valiantly gathered Saxon forces and in a brilliant campaign struck a succession of heavy blows. The scribes had so much contempt for Ethelred the Unready and his lack of military courage, they wrote, 'When the Vikings were in the east, the Saxon army was kept in the west. When the invaders were in the south, our army was in the north.' But not his son Edmund with sides of iron. The skillful and courageous young prince commanded the Saxon Frid, the militia army of warrior farmers called up to defend the homeland from Viking invasions. This defense force, created by Edmund's irreplaceable ancestor, Alfred the Great, was divided into two halves. Each served 6 months, half at home, half under arms, so that at no time would Saxon England be defenseless. Wessex, the West Saxons, Essex, the East Saxons, and Sussex, South Saxons. Much like colonial Minutemen during the American War for Independence, these stalwart Saxon farmers were expected to provide their own arms and provisions. Brave defenders who could ill afford metal-forged armor fashioned their own protective armor, bags of bones tied around their necks. Must have been a sight to see, and noisy too. King Alfred also set up fortified towns, burhs, fortresses built at strategic points to defend against the Vikings. Later, these burhs became towns and commercial centers in a thriving England, like Oxford, where the oxen forded the river. No oxen now, just brilliant young men and women who labor under the yoke of learning. So, can we find evidence of Alfred's burhs? You betcha. Canterbury, Peterborough, and the boroughs of London almost too numerous to count, to name a few. Today, we find the word burh all over the map. Edinburgh, Scotland, Salzburg, Austria, Hamburg, Germany, Pittsburgh, PA, that's Pennsylvania, USA, and the 5 boroughs of New York City, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, Queens, and the Bronx. Good old Alfred the Great. King Alfred also subdivided the country into large tracts of land called shires. There he placed his reeves, royal officials in each shire to carry out the laws of the king. The ancient Shire Reeve is someone quite recognizable to us today, as he was to Robin Hood. We know the Shire Reeve as the sheriff. Those clever Saxons. This marvelous system was inherited by King Ethelred the Unready, who, in the words of Winston Churchill, succeeded to the warrior throne only to pull it down to the Saxon dust. Ethelred the Unready certainly lived up to his name, one of the most interesting in all of English history. Ethelred means noble counsel. The unready came from the Saxon word unreid, which meant ill-advised or bad counsel, and from that came our word unready. A true oxymoron in name and deed was King Ethelred the Unready. Noble counsel and bad counsel fused together in an unfortunate name, an unfortunate man, an unfortunate king. But all was not lost, not yet. The warrior throne was bravely revived at the 11th hour by his valiant son Edmond Ironside, who rallied the Saxons to fight one last battle. So, did Edmond Ironside die of injuries suffered in his battle for England against Canute? Or was he murdered with Canute's knowledge or design? What we do know is that a truce sealed his fate, and England's. A truce that cemented the division of England, Vikings in the north, Saxons in the south, with one key provision. To spare their war-weary armies further bloodshed, single combat between Edmund and Canute decided the fate of England. But no matter the victor, whichever ruler outlived the other would be king of all England. The single combat was a draw. Neither declared the winner. But one warrior did win. For 1 month later, Edmund was dead, and Canute was king of all England. So, did 22-year-old Edmond Ironside succumb to war wounds from combat on the battlefield? After all, it was the 11th century. Or did the young Saxon warrior king meet his fate by treachery and murder? History will never know, and neither will we. However it happened, his death gave all of England to the greatest Viking who ever lived. The only Viking to sit on the English throne, and the second husband of Emma of Normandy. History's twists and turns, ups and downs, pushes and pulls, like Emma's embroidery. One thing's for sure, had Ironside not died, Canute likely would have not become king of all England, and not taken the widow of Ethelred the Unready as his wife and queen, Emma of Normandy. Her life would have been a different image on the tapestry altogether, fading into the mists of time. Such are the accidents of history, or the maneuverings of it. Yet no matter time or place, one constant remains throughout history: honor among warriors. Canute respected Edmond Ironside so much that on the anniversary of his death, King Canute laid a cloak decorated with peacocks on Edmund's grave to symbolize resurrection and assist in salvation. One other coda is attached to Edmond Ironside. So paramount is his indelible stamp on the line of British kings, one of the most famous writings in Old English that survives, the Song of Malden. Considered the most cherished heroic poem in the English language, second only to Beowulf, it celebrates one of England's most famous actual conflicts, the Battle of Malden. A fierce battle between the Saxons of Essex and an invading Viking host. A battle in 991, late 10th century, when Ethelred was king. Like the 300 Spartans of ancient Greece, or the intrepid 600 in the charge of the Light Brigade, or for a Texan, the Battle of the Alamo. Immortal battles fought by immortal warriors who knew to a man they would die, but stayed and fought to the death. In 991, the Vikings are at the peak of power. After a series of raids along the Essex coast, a Viking army tries to land, but they're met by a large force of Saxons, led by Britnoth, Earl of Essex. Used to bargaining with Ethelred, the Vikings demand payment to withdraw. It's better for you to pay tribute than to suffer a storm of spears. Britnoth not only says no, but he says H-E double hockey sticks no. We will defend this land, folk and field, he roars. Then Britnoth shouts his first command to his men: drive away the horses, for there will be no retreat. But the battle has to wait for the rising tide to ebb. For a causeway connects an island where the Vikings land to the mainland where the Saxons stand. Britnoth waits for the Vikings to come to him. The invaders must cross over so the Saxons will have the advantage to fight on their own ground. Was Britnoth wise or overconfident? History must be the judge. Whatever he sure had chutzpah. Come swiftly to us, you warriors of war, Britnoth roars again. The fight is as bloody and brutal as an arena of gladiators in ancient Rome. The men of Essex stand firm against the invaders until Britnoth is killed by a poisoned spear. Some of his men panic and flee. The others know they will die, but they stay to stand by Britnoth's body and fight to the last. Why is the Song of Malden still going strong after 1,000 years? It's not about victory. It doesn't celebrate it. The poem is about failure. Failure so heroic that the losers are remembered long after the victors are forgotten. Like Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, or the 600 who rode into the Valley of Death, or Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and the 187 defenders at the Alamo. Because the Battle of Malden occurred during the reign of Ethelred the Unready, history has often compared its hero, Saxon leader Britnoth, to Saxon hero Edmond Ironside. Was brave Britnoth real? Absolutely. In the heart of beautiful Cambridgeshire, only 15 miles from Cambridge University, is magnificent Ely Cathedral. We'll hear more of Ely, a place quite important to Emma's story. In the cathedral's ancient chapel wall, Britnoth's bones are entombed in stone. Though his head is missing, no doubt due to the gruesome work by Vikings, his legacy is fully intact. In his excellent book, The Writer's Journey, author Christopher Vogler explores the powerful relationship between mythology, storytelling, and the journey of heroes. Pick a hero, any hero. From Ulysses in the Odyssey to Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, from Joan of Arc to Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. The hero's story is always a journey. A hero leaves comfortable surroundings to venture into a challenging, unfamiliar world, maybe an outward journey to an actual place, a forest or a cave, a strange city or country. The new locale becomes the arena for conflict, with antagonistic, challenging forces. In Dorothy's case, the land of Oz. In Emma's case, England. For Luke Skywalker, it was the Death Star. For Jon Snow, what lies beyond the wall. Or for a hedgehog, just outside the hedge. Many stories take the hero on an inward journey of the mind and heart. In any good story, the hero grows and changes, making their journey from one way to the next, from despair to hope, weakness to strength, folly to wisdom, love to hate, and back again. Aristotle gave the story and the storyteller the most important element of the hero, flaws. Every well-rounded hero has a trace or traces of a tragic flaw, a wound, physical, psychological, emotional, or all three. Some weakness or fault that makes him or her completely human and real. Perfect, flawless heroes aren't very interesting and hard to relate to. Even Superman had kryptonite. The Greeks developed the tragic hero. Shakespeare made him immortal. Like ultimate tragic hero, poor Romeo, in lovesick grief, who utters, "He who jests at scars never felt a wound." These emotional journeys hook an audience and make a film worth watching, a book worth reading, or a podcast worth hearing. When I unearthed the story of Emma of Normandy, Queen of England, I knew I found all this and more. Her faults, her failures, her tragedies, and her triumphs. And after 1,000 years, Emma, like Edmond Ironside, is still going strong.
When we return, we will meet the one individual who made her story last through history. For Queen Emma was the shadow that crossed his light. Thank you for listening to Part 1 of Season 2 of the Stones and Bones podcast. We're taking a short 2-week break, but we will be making a huge announcement soon. Thank you.